On the Brooklyn Bridge tonight, voices strong, knowledge tight, thorough black talk in the air, changing minds, changing flair. From Brother Tad to Sister Kate, warriors got things to say. Sister Marcia brings the heat, Brother Blacksmith keeps the beat. Revolutionary waves they fly underneath the open sky. Every word's a call to fight. Tune in, feel the ancestral line. Thursday nights, the world will see Black Power Media on the spree. Facebook, YouTube, all align, breaking free from every bind. Social talk and politics, every voice breaks through the matrix. Commentary raw and true, for the many, not the few. Revolutionary waves they fly underneath the open sky. Every word's a call to fight. Tune in, feel the ancestral line. Ancestral line.
Standing strong on the bridge tonight. We got dreams and we got fight. Voices loud in the city's light. Change is coming into sight. History told by scars and pain. Echoes deep in every name. Legal truths we must reclaim. Through the storm and through the rain. Thorough black talk of you. With Brother Tad, Sister K, Sister Marcia, Brother Blacksmith. Cut the check or no vote, yeah. Justice calls from open skies. Tears that fall, ain't no disguise. Marching forward, no surprise. Strengthen hearts, you can't downsize. Every voice a sweet refrain. In this fight we share the strain. Through the joy and through the pain, bound together like a chain. Thorough black talk of you. With Brother Tad, Sister K, Sister Marcia, Brother Blacksmith. Cut the check or no vote, yeah.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, family. Welcome to another edition of Thorough Black Talk with your sister Keisha, your brother Tad, Brother Blacksmith, and Sister Marcia will be joining us shortly. We got a hot one tonight, family. Buckle up, put your feelings in your back pocket. Buckle up, put your feelings in your back pocket. We got our brother Divine from the U.S. Freedmen's Project in the building, along with our regular Sister Brooke. I'm telling you, the new voices are no longer playing games. But let me get my brother Tad. You ready, brother Tad? The OG Wisdom Podcast finest in the building. What's good, brother Tad? How are you? Can't hear you. Unmute, brother. Unmute.
Here we go. Microphone check 1 2 1 2, making sure I'm in the house. How you feeling, sis?
Good. It's been a long week. You know, a lot of things have happened, you know, on the work front, but that's another story for another time. You know, I know right now in the media, they are pushing the narrative of these tariffs, but there's so much more behind the scenes. And since, I work in that field as far as import exports, I'm going to give you a litany of information maybe later on in the broadcast, or if not, definitely next week. I see my sister Marcia trying to get ready. We waiting for Brother Black. I see Brother Divine. We're going to wait for Sister Brooke. We're going to make it happen tonight because, family, people still with the shits. They still with the shits. And we don't tolerate that. You better have a pass when you cross this bridge. You better have a pass when you cross this bridge. And a lot of these politicians, especially the ones that look like us, are being exposed for, betraying the people, betraying their constituency. A lot of interviews have come out. People have been caught on hot mics. So we're going to get into all of that. But continuing with our history component, Brother Tad, I thought it'd be fitting because I think maybe you or someone mentioned last week or the week before David Ruggles. And he is not spoken of enough. And it all ties into this push for a substantial bill on reparations. Let me compound. When you look at the New York kidnapping clubs, if you will, those who were kidnapping free Black people and then selling them down south in places like Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama for cheaper prices, if you will. David Ruggles was one of the ones who formed vigilante groups, to stop that from happening. And he didn't just form groups. He really did have a pull-up squad, if you will. Brother Tad, before I get into it, give me your historical perspective on David Ruggles here in the state of New York.
Well, I just remember David Ruggles being one of the abolitionists here in New York. And like you said, he had the pull-up squad. That I learned later in life because as a young person, I went to David Ruggles Junior High School 258. And what was so funny, I have a group chat on social media with the people I went to junior high school with. And somebody said, yo, who was David Ruggles? And of course, I chimed in, let them know that he was one of the many abolitionists. Because a lot of times we always think of the South when we think slavery and abolition. Anytime we talk slavery or our enslavement, we think of the South. But we don't know much about slavery in the North and our freedom fighters that existed in the North. So, of course, I put that in the chat, and they was like, of course, Tad would know because they know I'll be on my Black Power stuff, But we need that pull-up squad now to really pull up on these false prophets that's running around in the hood, the people that are literally hindering our progress. And I think Black people don't really have a grasp of what it is that we're dealing with. And as we constantly talk about on this platform, we're making Black history every day. It's good to know our story, where it started. That way we can get a gauge of where we are right now. Yeah. Look, Rich Nice done shout out David Ruggles, 258 the 8 ball. So, yeah, see, only real Brooklyn and Bed-Stuy heads know that though. So shout out to Rich Nice, But yeah, the 8 ball, class of 87. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
I'm still people, but I say like right now, for people to take us serious, we got to show up seriously. Because I believe it was Kamal Kambon who said Black people are very serious about not being serious. And we play a lot, like even with Jasmine Crockett right now, people really acting like she's a freedom fighter or she's repping us properly. Nah, she's not. And being ghetto and ratchet is not synonymous with Blackness. But again, like I've cited Dr. Khalil Gibran Muhammad book, The Condemnation of Blackness, these things were put in place for laws to be created to treat us unjustly, unfairly. And that's why David Ruggles was important, because he didn't rely on the system to protect the community. He knew
Facts.
as a man he had to protect the community, him and his brothers and sisters, and I think that's very important now. So when we talk about history on this platform, we just using that as an example on how it worked and what didn't work, what we could
Right.
fine tune and tweak as we move
Mhm.
forward, because our enemy is relentless. And when I'm saying enemy, I'm not just talking about Europeans, white folks. I'm talking about the ignorance. Because right now the new battle is the intelligence versus ignorance. And a lot of people are extremely ignorant. They think they know something because they may have watched a video on social media or may heard a favorite lecturer say something that may have actually been out of tune or out of touch. But since people have lazy scholarship and they don't invest in their own information, their own education, they take other people's word for it. And that's why here we constantly cite books and lecturers. We cite sources here to let you know this is nothing we're pulling out the air. However, we do add our own commentary based on our information and our personal life experience, because all of our life experience has value. Nobody's life has more value than yours. Always remember that. Not your enemy, not your mentor, not your jegna, nobody. Nobody's
Mhm.
life is more valuable than yours. So I want folks to really lean into the power of themselves and draw from the jewels and wisdom that they've learned. You may look at life as, I made a mistake, I did this wrong, I did that wrong. No, mistakes are building blocks. You know not to do that shit no more. You made a mistake, just don't do it again.
Facts.
Don't trust the wrong people. Don't trust these politicians. Look, don't even trust me. Don't take my word for anything. Just
That's
dig into
right.
yourself. Don't take my word for nothing. Just look at me as a talking head on 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 YouTube or social media, wherever you watching this from. But
Facts.
challenge what I say. Challenge, do the homework, do the work, because we're on a cusp of again of making history, Sister Keisha.
Mhm.
This could be the generation that literally gets the reparations. It started years ago. A little bit was doled out, but then there was a field order to renege on it.
Mhm.
And no, actually the field order was to issue the land in the 40 acres in the mule, but then I believe it was an executive order. Am I correct, Sister Keisha? There was
Mhm.
an executive order to renege, so the land was taken back to from us. So it wasn't like the country didn't recognize they owed us. They knew they owed us. But right now you got these new Negroes who are so confused and they don't know this information, so they think it's just a fantasy. They believe it's a
Mhm.
fairy tale, and it can happen. We've done so much with so little. We had Malcolm, we had Dr. King, we had Harriet Tubman. We've done things that people thought were impossible. We even had a black president within our lifetime, you know. And I say black for all intents and purposes because, yeah, aesthetically he was black, consciously he wasn't, and definitely not of the lineage, not of the soil. So when people say he wasn't really black, we're not saying he wasn't of African descent or didn't have African blood. We're talking about he's not from this soil. He's not from the fight that we're fighting. He didn't have a vested interest in us being compensated for our labor, for our blood, sweat, and tears. So when
Right.
we talk about David Ruggles, that's somebody we all should look into. It
Yes.
can't be every February it's Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman and Dr. King.
But
And
it's
maybe
funny you mentioned, not to cut you, Brother Ted,
Mhm.
but funny you mentioned Frederick Douglass. It was David Ruggles who helped him in his freedom and then sent the squad back to get his fiance.
See what I'm saying?
But not just that, him freeing over 600 black folks. Now, this was a
Mm.
businessman who came from a well-to-do family. I believe his mother had one of the most popular bakeries in Connecticut, where he was born. And he left Connecticut when he was like 17 and came to New York, right? The first black-owned bookstore came by way of David Ruggles, okay? Now, when I said he had drop squad, Brother Tad, When he found out that there were kidnappers, because like I told y'all for the last few weeks, that this was widespread and rampant. This wasn't a one and done. If you think trafficking now is off the chain, I'm telling you. So anyway, he formed squads to pull up on some of these ship pilots, right?
Mm.
And force judges like Mr. Riker, who the prison is
Rikers
named
Island.
after, right? He was a magistrate. Forced magistrates to do what they needed to do. Now, it's funny when you think of him having to confront and deal with Mr. Riker, when the majority of Black males who are incarcerated in jails are sent to Rikers Island. The cell block that resembles the slave castles of which you visited in Ghana resembles C-74 cell block.
Yes, they do.
So you may forget your history and lineage, but they do not.
Ever.
They do not. Not only did David Ruggles do all of that, family. When I say that this man was a man about town, he was a man about town. Tad just mentioned our ancestors, Martin and Malcolm, who both died at the age of 39, same as David Ruggles.
Mm.
When you look at hydrotherapy today, when he put the bodies in the cold waters and all that, back then they called it water cure.
Wow.
He had one of the biggest hydrotherapy clinics in the country. So this was a businessman. This wasn't anybody old regular degular. Really understanding what the warrior class is supposed to do. Y'all don't hear me. He really understood what the warrior class was supposed to do. Now, put your feelings in your back pocket. I know society pushes, and as we should embrace and love Queen Mother Harriet Tubman. But she is celebrated so that you don't look at David Ruggles. They can't pair in comparison. But anyway, I'm going to get off my soapbox because I see Brother Black and Sister Marcia. Let's get them on the Brooklyn Bridge. Brother Blacksmith and Unaki in the building. What's good? What's good?
Hey, Tad, can you hear me?
Yes, we do, brother.
Okay. Hey, Tad, just like I tell Sister Marcia when she come on, she got to say Blacktastic. You got to hold them up for me, bro. Come on now. You late. Okay, Sister Keisha, I can greet you now. How y'all doing?
He's Brother Black.
Hey, I need that, bro. I need it in my life. I'm chilling. I'm good. Everybody, I'm glad to be on the show. I'm listening to y'all and I'm learning. So continue with the show, please.
Sister Marcia, Africans on the rise. What's good, sis? How are you?
Peace, family. Happy Blacktastic Thursday. You see, I heard. I hope everyone is having a great day. Happy full moon. Meditate, manifest, do all those great things. And let's get into it.
Holla.
Now,
where my Blacktastic at?
You wasn't listening, brother.
I didn't hear it. Real talk. But go ahead, Sister Keisha. I'm just having fun right now. Okay, y'all go ahead.
Get your life together, Black. It's early.
And Brother Black had his first lesson this past weekend. You see, he got his background up and all that. I try to tell you. That's his first lesson. See, he ain't think he needed nothing. But he up in there now. He up in there. But family, please look further into David Ruggles. I'm going to put a link in the chat to help you with that, at least to get started on this great ancestor, David Ruggles, a true freedom fighter, if you will, in the chat for you all to view or read at your own pace, your own leisure, because he's definitely one we need to celebrate. And you don't see David Ruggles' picture in the schools, do you? You when it comes to Black history, I ain't never. You see, people worried about the Board of Education. That's when we become dumb. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My education came after I left. But, and I'm sure the same for the rest of you.
Yes.
Because when it comes to our story, they're going to keep pushing. You know, it was Thorough Black Talk that had to push Microsoft Copilot on the real history of who the real first Black woman was to run for
That's
president.
right.
So that changed the narrative on all media platforms. Every time I saw a Black History post from like a media platform, I would type right under, she was not the first Black woman to run for president. She was not. So now you see they changed the narrative. She's the first Black woman to run for under the Democratic Party. See, they changed it. See? But if you don't know your story, they will feed you garbage and you will consume garbage. And then come out confused. We don't want you to come out confused. So, you know, get ready and buckle up because the fight for reparations continues. It's not dying down, despite what you may think. It's only increasing. And it takes conscious voices who understand the law, who understand that in order to present your case, it must have a historical platform. We understand that assignment. I'll tell you, Automatics will be proud to see these young folks doing what they doing. They not listen.
Hey, Sister Keisha, you see the comment that Sister Pat put in there?
Yes. I'm gonna get to it. But let me be frank. All of your Black politicians are dead set against you. And I mentioned this to Sister Brooke when we first met. I said, I'm telling you, it is what it is, sis. We done been down this road. Trust me when I tell you. But they always show their hand. You know, just like a typical high-strung gambler, they will eventually show their hand. And so, unlike yesteryear, today, information is readily available. And you can use information in your argument. If you ever have to go into a courtroom, you know, you can represent yourself per se. You don't have to, well, anyway, that's another story. Let me go through these shout outs because we're going to get our guest in here real quick. Shout out to Sister Pat, United African Movement in the building. She says, Hotep, Sister and Brother 258 was also a weekend event. That's right, at the UAM to hold symposiums. Brother Roy Canton was the head custodian. Yes. And those of you who may have went there, I think in the 80s and the 90s, if you know the Lavelle family, yeah.
You know, Sister Keisha,
right there on Putnam Avenue.
Real quick about 258, because it's definitely one of my favorite schools that I went to out of all the city schools that I went to.
Junior high school.
And like I said, my graduating class was 87, which means I was there in 86. And if you can remember, in 1986, that's when Spike Lee came out with his first movie, She's Gotta Have It. Mm-hmm. And my music teacher taught me how to play the alto saxophone with Spike Lee's uncle, Mr. Cliff Lee. And he was so excited. He came in with the Jet magazine with his nephew. He's like, that's my nephew. This is my nephew right here, and was showing everybody. And I remember how electric it was. Just, you know, this is best on the 80s. There's no gentrification in sight, you know. Unfortunately, this was the height of the crack era, but there was always a sense of community. And then as I got older, we learned who David Ruggles was because, of course, you know, they said he was a Black abolitionist when we were young. They told us the story, but when you're young, you're really not that interested. You know, you're more interested in the popular names like Malcolm X and the people you know. But there are so many other people than who's given to us. And I didn't even know that the UAM had these things going on the weekend, because I remember just going to the Slave Theater in the 90s on Wednesdays, and then also at when they moved to the Masonic Temple for a little while. Going over there as well, you know. But I just had to throw that in there because I'm an 8-ball alumni, and I'm always gonna rep that to the fullest.
I know that's right. Yeah, I got some stories, but that's for another time. Y'all gonna have to pay me for them stories, for real, for real. You want to know? You gotta pay. Sister Marcia, what's going on with Africans on the rise? Oh, I think you muted, sis. Oh, okay. All right. She said, hold on. All right. Anyway, so speaking of 258, one of the persons who fought for reparations actually visited that area, right? 258 wasn't there, but actually visited that area. And that was the first Mrs. Garvey.
Mm.
You see, she visited Brooklyn often. So get into that story, because again, people talk about the second Mrs. Garvey. Rarely are they discussing the first Mrs. Garvey. So it's very important. Remember, things that they are not telling you. Those are the things that you need to look into. Go ahead, Brother Black.
Hey, Sister Keisha, when I used to go to A&B bookstore all the time, I remember there was a plaque or something that around that area that said that was the end of the Underground Railroad in Brooklyn, right? Or something like that. I don't remember the exact story now. It's been years. But
downtown.
No, downtown over there by where A&B, the bookstore in Brooklyn that everybody used to go to in the 90s. I forget the name of it right now. Yeah.
It's A&B. You're right.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I wanted to
because they had two stores on that block. They was on one side, and then they moved across the street to the other side. But I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm trying to think of the block. It's a white house. It was a white house. And they built Metro Tech around it. Because A&B was on Lawrence Street, and I believe it was the other end of Lawrence, between
I'm talking the Lawrence and Fulton side. Before they moved to the smaller space.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Duffield Place.
Right.
What are you talking about?
Yes.
Shout out to Sister Shanae.
That's where it was. Duffield. Yes.
Yes, Duffield.
But I know what he's talking about. But yeah, A&B was on Lawrence Street though, because A&B between Fulton and Willoughby. A&B was on Lawrence between Fulton and Willoughby, and then they moved across the street. And that's where I got my first Dr. Amos Wilson and Dr. Clark books. Yes, ma'am.
Give some shout outs real quick, because I almost forgot. Let's give a shout out to Big Ma in the building. What's good?
Yeah, Big Ma.
09. What's good, family? How are you? Donna, Brother Kerwin, Alabama in here heavy. What's good, family? How are ya? Sister Joyce, Brother Monty, Suffolk County. I had to call and check up on them, boy. The fires is going over there. I had to call on them. They were there. All right, go ahead. Don't worry about it. Sister Aruba 927, Doggy Down TV Mars in the building. What's good? And of course, Sister Farnessa. Boy, Alabama State in here. Heavy. Sister Almanette too, the Midwest crew. Brother Rich, nice. What's good? Magnetic Peace. Tyson, North Kakalaki in here. Heavy. But we got to get into it, fam. So, I guess Sister Brooke understood the assignment. Did a little piece on David Ruggles. So we're going to play this, and then we're going to bring our guests right up on the bridge. Family, let's play this.
You ever heard of David Ruggles? He's very important in New York history. This is a short article called David Ruggles, Committee of Vigilance, Fighting Against Slavery in New York, a city loath to acknowledge its horrors. On September 4th, 1838, Frederick Bailey, a 20-year-old fugitive slave, stepped off. I don't like the word fugitive slave. I prefer the term self-emancipated. But let's read the article. A 20-year-old fugitive slave stepped off a ferry boat onto Manhattan Island and began his first full day as a free man. New York City was a temporary way station, a place where he could disappear into the crowd. He was filled with joy at the urban spectacle. I was walking amid the hurrying throng, he later recalled, and gazing upon dazzling wonders of Broadway. The dreams of my childhood and the purpose of my manhood were now fulfilled. Joy quickly turned to fear. By sheer luck, Bailey ran into someone he knew, another escapee, working as a whitewasher under a new name, William Dixon. Dixon warned Bailey that the city was now full of Southerners returning home from their annual summer vacations in the North, and that there were hired men on the lookout for fugitives from slavery, including some Black New Yorkers who for a few dollars would betray me into the hands of the slave catchers, that I must trust no man with my secret. Bailey realized that he was easy prey to the kidnappers, if any should happen to be on my track. After spending a lonely night on a deserted wharf, Bailey made his way to the bookstore and home of David Ruggles, secretary of the New York Committee of Vigilance, an organization founded in 1835 to confront slavery and racism head on. Born to free Black parents in Connecticut in 1810, Ruggles had been a sailor, a grocer, and a printer before turning his home into a shop selling anti-slavery books and a meeting ground for the city's Black and white abolitionists. By 1837, Ruggles and his comrades had already helped more than 335 African Americans escaping slavery. Years later, after Frederick Bailey, who changed his name to Frederick Douglass and became the nation's most prominent African-American activist, he remembered his New York host with appreciation. Mr. Ruggles was the first officer on the Underground Railroad with whom I met after reaching the North. He was a whole-souled man, fully imbued with a love of his afflicted and hunted people. By the time Bailey arrived on Ruggles' doorstep, that's Frederick Douglass, the bookstore owner and a small band of other New Yorkers had been fighting slavery and racial discrimination for nearly a decade. Although New York State's remaining slave had been freed in 1827, many white New Yorkers treated their free Black neighbors with suspicion or open hostility. White artisans kept African American workers out of many city jobs and labor unions, while a growing population of Irish immigrants competed with Black men and women for positions as servants, laundresses, seamstresses, waiters, barbers, and street vendors. Sound familiar? Black children were limited to a small number of segregated schools. White business owners excluded colored people from equal treatment on the city's streetcar and steamboat lines. Now remember, wasn't no bridges. Everything was steamboat. So to get from Brooklyn to Manhattan, you had to take a boat. Everything was a ferry. Yeah, think of Staten Island. Everything's a ferry, except there ain't no bridge to the Staten Island. Okay, everything is a ferry. Colored people from equal treatment on the city streetcar and steamboat lines, most boarding houses and hotels, and many restaurants. The New York Zoological Institute refused to admit Black New Yorkers as customers, nor did freedom bring political rights. New York State's 1821 Constitution required Black men to own at least $250 in property in order to vote, and very few Black New Yorkers had enough money to qualify. Black women, like white women, were barred from voting equally, which is why white women started the feminist movement, the suffrage/feminist movement, because they were pissed off about the fact that Black men were going to get the right to vote before them. That's a quote. On top of all this, thousands of white New Yorkers were ardent defenders of Southern slavery. On top of all this, thousands of white New Yorkers were ardent defenders of Southern slavery. The city's economy rested heavily on the trade with the South. New York merchants and bankers shipped slave-grown cotton to England, extended loans to Southern planters so they could plant their crops and buy new slaves, and insured their property, including said slaves. New York retailers, wholesale dealers, and working people profited when Southern merchants and planters arrived in town to buy textile made from cotton and stay in Broadway hotels. Often those Southerners brought with them their enslaved servants, which New York state law allowed for them to do so for up to 9 months at a time. Most New York City voters, moreover, were members of a Democratic Party. Of which party? The Democratic Party, which actively supported slavery. The Democratic Party, which actively supported slavery. When anti-slavery activists tried to hold an interracial meeting in the Chatham Street Chapel in July in 1834, white mobs started 3 days of riots, driving some 500 African Americans out of their homes. In sum, New York often seemed to be as much as a Southern city as a Northern one. a place whose economy and politics were bound up with slavery. No wonder that in 1839, the Colored American, the city's black newspaper, blasted what it called the deep and damning thraldom which grinds to the dust the colored inhabitants of New York. 16 years later, the black abolitionist William Wells Brown, have you ever heard of these people? We need to be knowing who these people are. We need to put these people's faces on shirts. You know what I'm saying? William Wells Brown repeated the charge when he denounced the pro-slavery Negro-hating city of New York. Facing such bleak circumstances, Ruggles and his colleagues dedicated themselves to bringing change through direct action. By the early 1830s, Ruggles was a key member in a circle of activists based in the city's black church congregations and in black self-help organizations like the New York African Society for Mutual Relief. He identified strongly with William Lloyd Garrison's American Anti-Slavery Society, which called for the interracial action to end American slavery immediately. But while Garrison advocated, of course, for nonviolence, Ruggles felt differently. And this is in the 1830s, y'all, when they try to tell you, oh, we not like our grandparents. These are some of our grandparents. Some of y'all grandparents is different. Anyway, but while Garrison advocated for nonviolence, Ruggles felt differently. He called for practical abolition, meaning that black and white abolitionists must confront slave owners and their allies forcefully, even in the streets of New York City. Whenever necessity requires, let that remedy be applied, he wrote. Whatever necessity requires, let that remedy be applied, he wrote in 1836. Come what may, anything is better than slavery. Come what, let's read that all together. Whatever necessity requires, let that remedy be applied. Come what may, anything is better than slavery. Ruggles' solution was the Committee of Vigilance, a group of black and white New York anti-slavery activists he helped create in Manhattan in 1835. The committee's goal was to protect unoffending, defenseless, and endangered persons of color by securing their rights as far as practicable. Ruggles was the committee secretary and lead actor, and New York, as the nation's major seaport, gave him plenty of opportunities to put his theory into practice, child. In December 1836, for example, the Portuguese slave ship, the Brilliante, arrived in the harbor with 5 enslaved Africans on board. So at this point, the importation of people from other countries is illegal. But what was rampant was breeding and kidnapping. So, but we can see that even though it was illegal, just as today, things that are illegal are still finding its way into our city. So just as then, now New York City was complicit and okay and allowing under the table for a few slaves to still come into its ports. Portuguese slave ship Brilliante arrived in the harbor with 5 enslaved Africans on board. Several men connected to Ruggles sprang into action. On Christmas Eve, they stormed the Brilliante and escaped with 2 enslaved men. When a sailor tried to stop them, one of the gang cocked a pistol at him and threatened to blow his brains out. These are these grandparents that y'all keep disrespecting by saying that they were docile. The committee also used direct confrontation to fight the Southern slaves whose masters brought them to New York, but openly ignored the 9-month limit. Enslaved servants, both men and women, fought to use the law to escape or argue for their own freedom. Ruggles and his allies confronted slave owners face to face to try to force emancipations. The meetings sometimes became shouting or shoving matches. In one case, in 1838, an enraged Virginian, John P. Darg, had Ruggles thrown into jail after he tried to negotiate freedom for Thomas Hughes, a slave of Darg who had run away in New York with several $1,000s of his master's money. Okay, he took the money and ran, all right? Despite the setback, the abolitionists eventually won Hughes' freedom after the master tried to sell him into the Deep South, okay? But most of the committee was their crusade against the kidnappers who posed a threat to every black resident of New York City. Paid agents and bounty hunters roamed the city seeking to capture runaways. They were aided by city officials. They were aided by New York City officials who allowed black men and women and children to be jailed and shipped to the South without few questions asked, even though state law supposedly required that they be granted trial by jury. The city's kidnapping clubs, as Ruggles called them, went even further. The city officials pounced on legally free black New Yorkers and dragged them to the South for sale on the flimsy assertion that they were runaways. Children as young as 9 years old, John Welch, lured from his Mulberry Street home, were caught up in his dragnet and were sometimes shipped hundreds of miles away before their parents could plead for their return. With funds provided by local white abolitionists and by a network of 100 black New Yorkers who raised cash from hundreds more black New Yorkers, the Committee of Vigilance hired skilled lawyers to help captives held in city jails or already deported to the South. Although the city's judges, many of them well-connected Democrats, see, ain't much changed in New York City. Although the city's judges, many of them well-connected Democrats, sometimes refused to cooperate. By 1838, Ruggles and his committee had saved a reported 522 individuals from slavery. The committee counted on the influence and support of its white members, but Black men and women were its troops on the ground, keeping an eye out on potential kidnappers and mobilizing the city's African-American community to assist Ruggles. Ruggles also put together a network of safe houses and churches across the Northeast that became stops on the Underground Railroad to freedom. By the 1840s, New York City's Committee of Vigilance had inspired the creation of similar groups in Philly, Albany, Boston, Rochester, Cleveland, Detroit, and elsewhere, all bent on helping African Americans to flee and resist slavery. The Committee of Vigilance was largely forgotten, as historians later decades focused on the efforts of white abolitionists and singled out just a few Black anti-slavery activists such as Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman for attention. And we love them both, but we got to give credit to David Ruggles, so okay. For most Black New Yorkers and their white allies who struggled in later generations against racism, segregation, and discrimination in New York, as we doing still today, even with a Black mayor, New York City as well as the South, the name David Ruggles meant nothing. Yet in their efforts, these later activists unknowingly echoed the defiance of the leader of the New York City's Committee of Vigilance. Whatever necessity requires, let that remedy be applied. Come what may, anything is better than slavery. I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention this amazing foundational Black American in history, in New York history. I think it's a shame that I've never heard of him before. So I guess it really doesn't matter if you're in Florida or not. You know, you have to go and seek out your own history. I never heard of this man before, and when I read this article, I had to share it because I felt that this is something that we need to know. One, we need to know what the climate was. What was the foundational Black Americans thinking and saying in the 1800s? When they sit there and they tell us that New York was a free state, that New York was blue, and New York was anti-slavery, that's a lie. They participated, they profited, and they were the most. Let me tell you this is a quote from the book The Kidnapping Club by Jonathan Wells. New York was the most pro-slavery, pro-South city north of the Mason-Dixon line. The money, what built New York, was our blood and sweat from the South, being funneled from the South into this city to make it run. I just want you to see all of these things so you can know about real New York history.
Did she come with it? She understood the assignment, goddammit. She understood the assignment. There's a reason why they're not telling you the history that you should be knowing. Did you know that there was an attempted kidnapping on Henry Highland Garnett here in New York from these kidnapping clubs? Dig into the history, family.
Shout out to our little sister Brooke.
Yeah. Dr. Short, he called me, he said, grab her, Keish, take her. Because there's a lot of vultures out here. You gotta get her. So
yeah, shout out to Dr. Randy Short. Word.
For real. But we got our guest in queue. Let's get him up on the Brooklyn Bridge, family. Welcome. Our brother Devon, the U.S. Freedmen's Project. Brother Devon come with the thunder, family. Here we go. Let's get him up on the Brooklyn Bridge. What's up, Brother Devon? How are you?
What's good, family? Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, man. Did Sister Brooke bring it or did Sister Brooke bring it? My goodness. I think, in fact, if I'm not mistaken, and you guys are much more versed on the manner and the man than I am at this point. So thank you for this history. But didn't that junior high school named after David Ruggles, didn't that close down? Didn't they close it and turn it and reappropriate and now another school's inside of it? Is that what happened?
I'm not sure.
Over there on Macon?
258. Yeah.
Yes.
That's right. If I'm not mistaken, I think one of my friends, I think her son goes there. I gotta double check that because I think it's a school for those with special needs at this point, correct?
They may have multiple schools in there.
Yeah. I know there's a prep school, I think, inside of it too.
Yeah.
Man, I think just if there was nothing else that you guys talked about, this show, except to bring more visibility to David Ruggles, his name, his history, his legacy, that would be enough. And so I just want to, again, thank you for this opportunity to come up here and share this platform with you guys, step on this Brooklyn Bridge,
Let's get our
but
sister
also just
as
get
well.
educated and get enlightened on this New York history that they don't teach us, like Sister Brooks said, like you guys have pointed out.
Yes.
Let's get our sister up on the Brooklyn Bridge. Welcome, BK Finest, Sister Brooke. What's good? What's good? What's good?
Hello, hello, hi. I didn't think you was gonna play the whole thing.
We needed to hear the whole thing.
You've been up here long enough, sister. No, we thorough.
Yeah, that's right.
That's thorough. Right. Because if you're not thorough, that's where messages get all twisted up. So I didn't have enough time to lay it all out. I just gave a little foundation, and I didn't even see your post today until you texted to me. You know, while I was giving my spew. That just tells you we are in divine order. We just got to stay the course. But I'm going to go my soapbox because we got to get into this New York State reparations bill, which, you know, all of us on this platform in particular know it's a bunch of BS. And to have voices of dissent, I'm going to start with, you know, Brother Divine. What are some of the obstacles that you face? Because I know you address lawmakers personally, but what are some of the obstacles that you see that you have faced thus far?
So, I mean, it's many. And so since we are pressed for time, the one I want to go to directly kind of ties into what Sister Brooke shared. And again, going back to honoring our brother, David Ruggles, look how, and that was just a high level blimp shot of his legacy, right? Just doing some more research as you guys were talking, I found out that I worked not too far from where he had his first grocery store on John Street. And so for that reason, one of the things that we pointed out in our advocacy, and it's a minor point, it seems like a minor point, but it's actually a major one, is that we were pushing for this legislative body to, if they were going to do an accurate or a sufficient job with a task force, with a study, that it needed to at least be 2 years. We had just saw California do theirs, and it took 2 years. And even though California is a bigger state, our role in slavery and how we are intricately tied to it, based for all the things that you shared and things that we haven't even shared yet, a year was a joke. I told them to their face that if you're going to talk about doing this study and do it in any way that was going to be effective for us as a people, 1 year is going to be a glorified high school project. And that just wasn't going to do. And so in addition to pointing out the time frame, which was insufficient, we talked about how their bill didn't ask for any money to run a task force. And we also talked about having the accurate timeline, because what they're doing in New York is, you know, and this is not to offend anybody because I'm not sure what anybody's ideology is, but I got to speak plainly, and we could discuss it.
Keep it thorough, brother. Don't worry about it. Keep it thorough over here.
All right, good. I forgot we in Brooklyn. We on the bridge.
That's right.
You know, a lot of the Pan-Africans have turned out to be obstructionists, and what they're doing is that they are what's the word I'm looking for? They are framing our history around Africanness. And that's not to say any of us denies it, but what they're doing is they are calling all of our ancestors enslaved Africans. And what you do is that you then center the history of New York around the time before it was a state. And now we're talking about the Dutch. We're talking about companies and entities that colonized this area when it was New Amsterdam that no longer exist. And our claim is against the state government. And so if you are bringing up harms from before New York was a state and before it had a government, who are we looking to get that redress from? But they're using that framing of history so that they can add others onto the claim that face something similar, but not the same. And so when you conflate two things that are similar but not the same, somebody gets the short end of the stick. And unfortunately, historically, it has always been a foundation of Black Americans, those of our families that after emancipation earned the status of freedmen. So I'll take a breath there.
Straight fire. You hit it on the head, brother.
I appreciate that.
We'll come right back with Brother Tad. Let me just play this clip, just so you guys can, pretty much see exactly what it is that he's compounding here.
Afternoon, Commission. My name is Divine Prince. I'm the current president of the U.S. Freedmen Project. Where 2 years ago, right here in Albany, we made Black American history, teaching the only workshop educating the legislators and the public on how to get reparations correct and constitutionally sound. There seems to be some confusion about when we talk about who we are and where we came from. I want to be very, very clear. Those families whose ancestors were enslaved and emancipated in the United States of America are indigenous to the United States of America. By 1850, our families were multi-generational Americans. Though we have ancestry that goes back to the continent of Africa, it becomes a misnomer and a tool and term of erasure because everybody with melanin is African American in the United States of America. And so what has happened is that this bill has become a racial justice bill, and racial justice is not reparations. And so we cannot talk about correcting harms when the bill inflicts another harm. And so after the event in Queens in December, Commissioner Lurie Daniel Favors did a public video where she talked about getting into the legislation, understanding it so you can know what the commission is responsible for and what the legislators are responsible for. So I did just that, even though we did that the entire time when we advocated for this bill to be vetoed so it could become constitutionally sound. And so in the duties portion of that bill, it does ask and implore that this commission study a race-based model. It also talks about assessing the harms done to society at large. Do you know who's a part of society at large? Non-Black people, non-enslaved people. And so this commission is tasked with studying harms for everybody. That's a universal program. But you know what else is in that bill? If we get down to number 8 of the duties, it implores this commission to investigate. It says recommend appropriate remedies. And appropriate, in my estimation, are when it says appropriate laws are laws that can be passed. And if this commission does a race-based study and come up with race-based recommendations, those race-based recommendations will never become race-based laws because race-based laws are unconstitutional. The legislators understood that when we told them that the first time when we made Black American history 2 years ago, but they still decided to come together and put this commission in place based on race-based. So here's what I'm asking the commission today. If you understand now, because now it's public, that race-based recommendations that will become race-based laws are unconstitutional, are you going to side with the people and demand that this commission becomes lineage-based, or are you just going to tell us when it's over and done with that you were just following orders?
Thank you, Mrs.
Brother Tad, go ahead.
Nah, no, I just wanted to say that he was spot on, right, sis? And I want to thank him and Sister Brooke because this helps us sharpen and improve our arguments when we have these conversations with our Pan-African brothers, who think we denounced our African identity, which we didn't. And a lot of times I always have to remind brothers that though we recognize our ancestry came from Africa, we've been emancipated before Africa had the countries that it have right now.
Come on.
Berlin Conference of 1884, but though we were emancipated in 1865, so while we were free, Africa was still getting carved up. So when dudes say they from Nigeria or Liberia, those places didn't exist at the time of our emancipation. And to Brother Divine's point, he sharpened the argument with us being here generations before New York was even a state.
That's right.
We've had generations. So when we say we're foundational Americans, we're not talking about we love America as a government, but the fact of the matter is our ancestors are laid here, buried here, fought, died, lived, and loved on this soil. And I always got to remind brothers, Brother Divine, one time on social media, was it last month, Sister Keisha, where I put my maternal bloodline on social media, just showing people I can trace my family back to the 1800s, just on my father's side. So, and of course, this is spit in the face of Black men not taking care of their children because I show my father's father. to the 1800s. So we've been here, because I also can trace my mother's paternal bloodline, and of course my grandmother always recognized her Native American ancestry. So I say that because you helped me as an elder improve my argument, because I'm always talking about the rhetoric that we have on different platforms. Not this platform. We don't do rhetoric too much. We thorough. And people are so indoctrinated to their thinking. They think so habitually. They don't believe that new information should give them a paradigm shift to examine this new information. We're not denouncing our African identity. That's not the situation. However, if we're going to go back in time, let's talk about it honestly. Let's have an honest conversation. And you really gave me a paradigm shift this evening to discuss the multi-generational Black American families that were here prior to this government even being established. Because to your point, if we go back before the government established, then we chasing ghost money. We talking about we want to sue the Dutch West Indian Company and stuff like that, who's not even in existence anymore. So how we gonna get
or
that
you're
money?
going to the Vatican, right? You're going further back. They are the ones that seeded the founding people that came out here and said, oh, I discovered this place and I discovered these places. So you're going real back, and then it becomes a more inclusive conversation. But when we're just focusing on New York, you do what's good for New York. And I think, I'm a Pan-African. My family comes out of IET. I'm here. I'm grateful. And I support my brothers and sisters with anything that they need. But when we're looking at different aspects of reparations, there's different places that you knock on doors, and you knock on doors correctly. And so I appreciate the work that you both are doing, because it is helpful. I've sat in one of those meetings and I was disgusted. I just left afterwards. The Queen's meeting, where they're telling you that they don't have an agent to organize anything. They're still looking for that agent. They're still doing this. They're still doing that. And they were a year in by then, or 9 months in. And that's ridiculous. So I support y'all, whatever y'all need. I might not go out there and stand up and riot and and picket, but I'll do other stuff, right? I'll do what is necessary and what is possible for me. So keep up the good work. You got a supporter here. And, I will also invoke this idea on children, because they're the next generation. Yes. They're the ones moving forward. They're the ones that need this information. So this is what we have to do. We have to seed our own, generation, but we definitely have to seed the future generations so that they know that something is possible for them, versus just looking at, capitalism for everything that it has that is not giving us anything today.
Sister Brooke, I want to bring you into the conversation. Thank you also for that piece on David Ruggles, and I'm glad to find out too that you had never heard of him before, and to know that this man had done so much, a true freedom fighter here in New York. Mm-hmm. But what is some of the those on the committee, or the commission, if you will? What are some of the commentary that you have heard from them, which causes a dissent between, yourself, Brother Divine, and others who see the foolishness for what it is? But I just want to get your perspective so people can know it's not just me.
Well, I can speak specifically about Lori Daniels Favors. She had my speech that you played last week from Rochester, that was in direct response to her. It wasn't very long, it's like 20 minutes, her 20-minute live, where she basically was like, if you get 50 billion of y'all and y'all don't like who the reparations is going to, and y'all yell at us, what does it matter? What is it going to do? Nothing. So, I felt the need to, it's just a bunch of rhetoric like that, where she's really talking down to us. Like, how Democrats do. talking to us like we a dog with two tails, talking to us like we children, talking to us crazy. And that's why I took my whole 3 minutes to talk to her crazy back.
You know, and listen, when Sister Brooks sent me the video that she's referencing right now, you know, I just chuckled because I'm glad to see that she's catching the BS off the rip. You know, like I told her before, they're going to come with all kind of BS. They're going to talk that talk. But in the end game for them is kickbacks and payoffs and, you know, things of that nature. And this is what it's always been. So to make this now lineage-based, which is what Callie House also mandated. Please go back and read that legislation. Please go back and read it. It's available on archives.org. You can read it. But anyway, the same principle. Now to see as Dr. Fillet, shout out to MWM in the building. But as she referenced, you know, some Pan-Africanists have become a serious obstacle. And not just that, but some of these so-called Black organizations, like National Action Network, like December 12th, you know, I can go on, in Cobra.
And New York Reparations.
I'm sorry, guys, y'all.
We all naming names at the same time because we all got them. We all know where the crooks lie.
IBW 21.
And I was
last week you weren't here, Brother Devon, but you know, Sister Pat mentioned in the chat he's always been a United Nations pimp.
That sounds about right.
So this last meeting, not the one in Rochester, but the one in Queens, where Sister Marcia got perturbed and had to leave up out of there because she was getting frustrated. But it got kind of hot in that committee meeting, and I thought, you know, some folks was gonna get their head bust because they were saying some really disrespectful things.
Yes.
But I'm glad they did say it, because now, you know, the mask has been lifted and that commentary is now on the record. So your thoughts on these committee meetings that have happened so far? Because the last one, Sister Brooke and I went up in Rochester, that racist place. But anyway, yeah, we had our dealings, David Ruggles, with police up there. That's another story. But
oh man,
but yeah, did she ain't tell you? Ain't tell him what happened to us up there?
I said it in one sentence, so he didn't get the gravity.
Yeah, she got to put me on offline.
I had to put my hand on my sister's thigh, like, come on,
I was like,
we got to get out of here alive.
I take direction real well when it's necessary. Sometimes
we have to get out of there alive. That's the goal. Especially when I don't got them things on my hip. I'm sorry. We got to get up out of there. So, but as far as these committee meetings that have taken place, what are some of the commentary actually that you're hearing from just the community?
So that's a great question. So just to kind of rewind it back a little bit, where I got a chance to meet my lovely sister Brooke in person leading up to this bill being signed. Like I said in that clip that you played, and this is not to impress anybody, but just to impress upon you that we've been in this fight since the beginning of this legislation. And so the beginning of our fight was to take what they had. So the original, talking about, in addition to the Pan-Africans and the obstructionists and all these quote unquote legacy organizations, the first iteration of this bill actually had IBW 21, the December 12th movement, and then Cobra written into the bill. And not just written into the bill, but the bill was written in a way where each organization got the opportunity to appoint 2 commissioners each. So that would have been 2 from IBW 21, 2 from December 12th movement, and 2 from Cobra. and it was an 11-person commission. Thus, 6 is a majority and would have given them a quorum. So as long as they would agree with each other, which we know they would have been able to unilaterally make decisions and control a quote unquote community-based commission. And that was their goal. And that's where the U.S. Freedmen Project and the Black American Grassroots entered the fight. And so when we saw that, we were like, oh, no, we can't do this. So we organized online and offline. We contacted all of our local politicians, got everybody to do the same, held multiple spaces, and we finally got a chance to strike that bill down as unethical because it had nonprofits written into a bill to give them control of a quote unquote community-based commission. So we got that knocked out. Immediately, that put us at odds where you mentioned the December Talk movement. I forget the sister's name, but it's an older woman. She passed away. God rest her soul.
Sister Viola Plummer.
Right. So when that happened, not to talk ill of the dead, but just to give an accurate account, she cursed me out when she found out that we were the ones that got her organization taken out the bill. And it was no conversation that was going to calm her down when we were trying to explain that this was not, and maybe that was the community back when you guys crafted this bill. But the community has shifted and you have to shift with it or get left behind. And so ideologies have changed. That's never been the majority of our community anyway, but it was at one point the majority of the political talking heads that they were a part of. And so now it's a new day. And us as a collective, us as a community are more politically engaged than we ever have been and are moving toward a place of political maturity where we are looking at policy over party. And so she did not understand that and was not able to adjust, like I said, before she passed. And I had no ill will toward the sister. I didn't disrespect her. I was never raised that way to disrespect elders. So I'm glad that I did it because I didn't have to have any regrets when she did pass away after that. So that was a great thing. But I'm saying that to say we got that struck down. Then we educated on how to get it right. And they ignored us. But in leading up to where I got a chance to meet Brooke and they were going around the city, Senator Sanders, Assemblywoman Szalages, and some of the other cronies that were involved with it, and some of their other, talking heads and lackeys. They were going around to different cities trying to build up support because they never had any support. They didn't get any type of feedback. So they came up with this idea and then tried to sell it to the community and try to convince the governor to sign it. That's where I got a chance to meet Brooke. And at those meetings, what was happening was, as we were informing the public, asking questions, disrupting a little bit, as we got to do in David Ruggins spirit, but we didn't have to go as far as he did. But it was always come what may. I ain't gonna lie, but it just never came to that, which is good. But what was happening at the time is that the community was for the first time hearing what we had done, seeing what they were doing, and it was building that where we're at right now, the environment for what we see today. And during that process, there was a couple of people that would come to us after every meeting, and they're like, listen, well, if they're going to pass this through, we need somebody from your organization, preferably you, to be on the commission as well. But I took it back to the team, we spoke, and it was, we felt that it was in our best interest to not be involved with the commission at all, because we saw that the fix was in, that it was going to be a nothing burger. And so I'm saying all that to say, that is where our advocacy comes in and what our focus has been. We have been solely focused on making sure we go to these public hearings to speak on the record, truth to power, and let them know that we see you. And our entire advocacy is encapsulated in what Sister Brooke said when she went to Rochester. I couldn't have said it any better. This is why we are so thankful to be working with this sister. She told them point blank period what it is. And if you do what we know that you're going to do, we're going to see you. And we see you, but we're going to let you know that we know that you know. And so what we're doing is we're just taking the excuse away, because for far too long, they've sold us this empty symbolism. And then when it doesn't work, they blame the Republicans, blame the environment, blame whatever else they can and say, but we tried, y'all, still vote for us. But we're taking that excuse away in real time and letting everybody know that when and if this crashes and burns, understand that they were willing pilots. It was not something that was put on them. They didn't do it by mistake. This was a kamikaze mission from the start, and they willingly signed up for it. And so in that way, when we take that excuse away, when we take that strategy away, now everybody can be held accountable when it becomes what it's going to become. Or like I said in Albany, there is a small space that if you are willing to do the right thing, that if you are truly standing on this reparations business, you can use number 8 of the duties and only suggest recommendations that are lineage-based and that are constitutionally sound. And we will applaud you. We will thank you for your service. And we can ride off into the sunset and get reparations and remedial justified people. I don't see that happening, but there is a space for it.
You know, well said, brother, because when we were up there, the stuff that I was seeing, you know, it just reminded me of things that I had seen in the past. And, you know, prior to us going up there, I had let Sister Brooke know about said groups, their history, as far as how they operate here in New York. And as you said, Viola Plummer did a transition, but she was very well versed in what she was doing for December 12th movement. And I'm not throwing no dirt on her name, but she was very well versed on what she was doing. In fact, at the premiere of the film, what's that movie, Judas Factor, about Fred Hampton, there was a panel discussion after the showing of the film. And I was on the panel along with 2 persons from December 12th movement. And immediately the discussion was about reparations, but immediately they started talking about various programs. And I had to shut that down off the rip. And it got to a point where I think Sister Veronica, if she's in the chat, she was there along with Sister Pam Africa, that I wasn't having it. And they needed to quell that argument because I didn't want that type of verbiage to permeate through the audience. So I had to let them know, you're going to be quiet on this one and you're wrong. But again, we have to take these stances because this is serious business. And if we continue the status quo, which is having this Pan-Africanist mindset, including everybody, it's going to boil down, as you said, kickbacks for those who are on the commission, those who are researchers, and so on and so on and so forth. And we'll be looking again, we never got reparations. But with these dissenting voices, they can no longer say that you did not disagree or that there was not a dissent to this argument, because as you said, it's very important that we get this on the record. Brother Tad, quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, we have a lot of our people who are wedded to the Democratic Party. And one of the things we try to push here is free the Black vote movement, meaning getting our people off of that goddamn party. And I'm not saying you got to jump ship and go to the Republican Party. That ain't what we're saying at all. What we're saying is while we are pushing the fight for reparations, lineage-based reparations, not just here in New York, but in Boston and California and Detroit and so on and so forth, that we no longer reward the party that enslaved our ancestors, reward the party that were benefactors of these kidnapping clubs, reward the party that has always given us lip service. So what we're saying is get yourselves out of that party and re-register as a non-party affiliate independent, right? Because having this argument and seeing the the registrations curl back, that can be problematic for both parties. And on this platform, Brother Divine, we've been going through a history of the Democratic Party. So just letting people know exactly what it is that they're dealing with. Now, I see you have something coming in September, with the Freedmen Project. First, before we get into that, let the people know what the Freedmen Project is and who you guys are.
Oh, great. Thank you. So as I said in the clip, my name is Divine Prince. I am the president of the U.S. Freeman Project. We are to what you guys are just saying, we are a nonpartisan nonprofit organization. We are not beholden to any party. We are beholden to our people, to our ancestors, and to our lineage. We are dedicated to fulfilling the abandoned missions of the Freedmen Bank and the Freedmen Bureau. That is the last time our people ever had specific set-asides that were meant just for us. And that's important in this entire conversation because even then, back then, they had the American Freedmen Inquiry Commission in 1863. That was an initial study. And what it did is it went to our people, asked them what they looked at their conditions at the time, similar to what happened with Special Field Order 15. They asked them, what do you need? What would help you acclimate into the society? What could be given based on what was done to you and your ancestors? And out of that came the argument by Senator Charles Sumner, who was a radical Republican at the time. And he said, we need a Freedmen's Bureau, not because these people are Negro, but because they have for generations been despoiled their rights. And so what that did was that set us aside as a specific caste, a protected class, if you will, that needed, in the words of Dr. King, something special happened to us. And so something special needed to be done to fix us and repair what was done. And so that is what happened. And so even then, the former Confederates, the Democrats at the time, was saying, hey, we can't do it for just one race. That would be unfair. And that was the argument. No, we're not doing it because they're Negro or because they're Black. We're doing it because what was done to them. And that's exactly how reparations has to be done today. Even if you believed that all Black people, because of white supremacy and racism and discrimination, have been harmed in some form or fashion by this government or by this country. Again, those are not the same claims. And they have never been conflated outside of the present iteration of Pan-Africanism. I don't have any problems with Pan-Africanism. We in New York, I grew up with Pan-African. We all had the African medallion. We all had the pick with the fist on it. Matter of fact, it depends on how old you are, and we know how popular the Simpson was, they had those black Simpson shirts where the family was Black and they was in the red, black, and green. So I don't have an issue with that because when you look at the history of Pan-Africanism, whether you talk about Malcolm, whether you talk about Queen Mother Moore, they understood that there was two separate claims, but we was fighting for both people. In 1963, in a speech at Michigan State, Malcolm advocated for reparations for those of us whose ancestors built the country, and he and separately advocated that any Afro immigrant that comes over should not be subject to what we were subject to. So if we get land, if we get an area all our own, they should come right into that, coalesce and be amongst us so that they would never have to deal with the white supremacy that befell our ancestors. Queen Mother Moore, she had two separate organizations, one for the descendants of slaves, one for those that were coming over. She was a staunch follower of Marcus Garvey. And so you don't see until Narcan and Cobra comes on the scene where you get this conflation that no, it's not two separate claims. We're all just Africans in America. And one of the most problematic things that I've heard Ron Daniels say is that today's Afro immigrant is tomorrow's African American. And that is insidious, right? When you think about it. Now it sounds like unity if he's not a paid agent, and I won't put that on that brother because I don't know for sure yet. But if he's not, and he truly believes that, and he thinks that's a form of unity, what that actually does is it erases who African Americans are right now. If today's Afro immigrant is tomorrow's African American, what about today's African American? Who do we become tomorrow? And so it was a question I asked at one of the first meetings. I asked them, if you could be you and you can be me, who am I? And the answer is nobody. And so if I'm nobody, then I can't get redress. If I'm nobody, I can't get remedial justice. If I'm nobody, I can't get anything. And that's the issue with which our organization was formed to combat against, because even if they were doing it with well intentions, we know the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And so good intentions is not enough to do the right thing. The only thing that can help you do the right thing is doing the right thing. And doing the right thing is fighting for remedial justice for our ancestors. And if there is a separate claim for racism or discrimination that has befell our African immigrant brothers and sisters, then let's fight for that in a separate claim. But you putting them together turns it into a racial claim. And here's one thing I do know for sure. Like I said, I won't impugn their integrity or say they're getting paid or not, but here's what I do know. That this current class of Pan-Africans are some of the most well-educated Pan-Africans that we probably have ever had. We're talking about from an institutional standpoint. And so they are filled with lawyers, constitutional, defense, business, all types. We were in an event, and I'll land here and take a breath. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go over the tangent. But we were at an event in Mega Evers. And I asked the question, and they actually answered it, because a lot of those events, they weren't even asking the questions we were asking. But I asked, what are you guys doing for the constitutionality of reparations when you put the claims together? And this sister, I forget her name, she came up and she was a constitutional lawyer. The sister was from the Caribbean, but she was still a constitutional lawyer. And she was saying that, yeah, we know that today race-based policies are unconstitutional, but who's to say it's always going to be that way? And so what she was essentially trying to do, and what they're trying to do now, is use our justice claim to grandstand and take a case to the Supreme Court to fight race-based policies. But the catch is that race-based policies is tied to the 14th Amendment. And so unless y'all saying y'all going to eradicate the 14th Amendment, race-based policies that viewpoint is not going to change anytime soon. We understand the trick bag that they put us in, but if you're looking to use my ancestors' remedial justice claim to go off on this fool's errand, I'm not with it. And unfortunately, that is what their main objective is. And so our organization is set to fight that. And I believe in this. We come from a long line of speaking truth to power. And like Sister Brooke said, we're looking at people that are of our skin folk, but they're not the kinfolk. And so now I say we got to speak truth to power, regardless of whatever language we got to translate it into. Because the face of oppression is no longer just the white supremacists.
Now you got something coming up. Excuse me. Tell us about this project that took place in September last year.
Oh, so that was actually one of our general body meetings. We try to have some of those, as our, because listen, I'm not even going to hold you. We are definitely a fledgling organization. We are on the rise. We are burgeoning, but we are still fledgling, right? And so we are always looking to expand and grow and help the community in any ways that we can. And so we look to hold as many open general body meetings as we can, where we can bring people in, educate them on what's going on, let them know what's happening, let them know the latest with the task force, let them know the latest with any other legislation that we're looking to push, or just any events that we're having that will celebrate us as a lineage. Because in addition to the legislation portion of it, what we also believe is, and again, this is no shade to those that believe that we are, more intricately tied to Africanity than some others don't believe. But what has happened is the reason why you get, and I won't blame it all on this, but I'll say this, a major reason, in my opinion, that you get a situation where a David Ruggins can get erased is because for so long, they have tied our lineage, our history, to jumping over everything we did here and taking us straight back to Africa somewhere, somehow. And there's no problem with connecting with our ancestry that goes there. But if I have to disregard everything my ancestors did here for the generations that we were here, that's a problem. And that's why you get a David Ruggins that gets almost erased from history. That's how you get a Prince Rivers that nobody talks about. That's how you get, some of the most amazing stories that the world has ever known that came out of what we did here, for not only ourselves, but for others. And so, we understand that we have to instill that back into our people, because for too long, too many of us have been taught that, again, we're not Black Americans. We're not foundational to this thing. We are just Africans in America. And if that's who we are and what we are, that's a dangerous precedent to set, because it erases everything we did here. We're just Africans that lost our way. And that's where you get the trope. Oh, they don't have a history. They don't have a culture. And that's where that is born out of. And unfortunately, no offense to my sister here, that's one of the good ones. Unfortunately, that has been preached by too many Pan-Africans. And that, whether it's intentional or unintentional, this idea of denationalizing us to this country is a part of the ideology, because you cannot convince a people that they are lost until you make them lost. And so when you strip us away from the history and the country that our ancestors built, now you can start pumping us with, no, you have no identity unless you identify with Africa. Regardless of how many Africans are coming over here and trying to get to where you at, no, you just African, so you need to go back to where they came from.
Right. Oh man, brother, you spitting fire tonight.
Listen, I'm just following y'all lead.
And the funny thing is, it's the same place they're fleeing, right? All the Africans here today are fleeing their home country.
Talk about it.
We're not talking about the middle space, right? You want to exalt people for doing something and not recognizing people that stayed and fought and struggled and did the labor that you could come in and have open door policy towards. It's
yes.
It's akin to, like I said, everybody likes to talk about, the great Dr. Clark, Dr. Ben, but rarely do people mention Dr. Shashi McIntyre. And that's why a couple of weeks ago I had to play that clip. She was saying the exact same thing you just said, brother. Back in the 80s.
I was going to say, sis, maybe you should play it again.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find it real quick. But she was talking about that, and she said, and I quote, that a lot of the Pan-Africanness was giving her flack about it. Was giving her, and she said, I love him to death. I love him to death. But no. So, look into a Dr. Shashi McIntyre.
I definitely will. They also gave some flack to because that's something that they try to put on us. Like, you guys just don't, want to be Black or unite with other Black people. And they was given, now that it's resurfaced, a lot of stuff is, it wasn't around with social media. But when you take a look at some of the comments that Dr. Khalid Muhammad was making about Africa and their relationship with us, and when he brought up, yeah, you know what, it might not be popular in this crowd, but some of those Africans owe us reparations too. And so when he started talking about that, all of a sudden, they had some harsh words for him too, not necessarily in that audience that day, but the people online that were trying to use him as a cudgel to beat us back into submission of, let's just view ourselves as African because all of our icons did. But it's like, no, they understood the nuances. Malcolm even said in an interview, I forgot the brother's name, but it was an Afro-Latino, it was on TV, it was a debate. And he told him, like, yeah, we have similar cases, but you guys are talking about how you as Afro-Latinos are experiencing the same thing as the so-called Negro. But if you start speaking Spanish while you're down there, they're not going to treat you like they treat me. If you tie your head up in a turban, they're not going to treat you like they treat me and my people. And so there was always a nuance that all of our greats understood that has somehow been erased through history, but we waking it back up. I like to say we are in the middle of a foundational Black American, a American freedman renaissance. And we are bringing all that beauty that came from our lineage, we bringing it back and standing on it, because what we didn't know all this time is that while we were trying to do this blanket Blackness thing, everybody else was delineating and standing on their wins as Ghanaians, as Nigerians, as Jamaicans, as Haitians. And we were just like, nah, we just all Black. And then they were taking credit for the things that our ancestors did with the whole we thing. But every time we went and said, oh man, that's a great Black American that did this, that's a great foundational Black American that did this, all of a sudden it's like, hold on, wait, why are you being divisive? But they were allowed to delineate and we weren't. Now we on some, no, we doing it, and in the words of David Ruggins, come what may. Come what may.
Bring it. But I just want to play this for our brother here. This is Dr. McIntyre. Oh, I had the pleasure to sit at her feet and listen to this sister. But
oh wow,
we're gonna play Dr. McIntyre and we'll come right back.
Africa African-centeredness, you've got to begin with Africans. You've got to begin with Africa. Now, I'm an African Native American. That bothers a lot of people because they want me to be just the African. But my husband's African, Jamaican, Caribbean, or West Indian, whatever, comes up. My father was African Canadian. Everybody's African Ghanaian, African Nigerian, African Brazilian. Only African Americans are just African. Now, that's not a criticism. That may be a very powerful position because we represent the diaspora and we work together. But it requires some insights. It requires us to move consciously to a level where when we think about Africa. Now, most of you think that the indigenous people in this hemisphere, or most of you have been taught that the indigenous people in this hemisphere came over the ice bridge in the Bering Strait. Ain't no black people been running all through Asia and come running across no ice bridge and come running down here from Vancouver down to Tierra del Fuego in South America, peopling this continent. Do you believe that? Do you really believe that? I mean, I know Diop says it, Diop says it, Jake Anti-Diop says it, I know Ivan Van Sertima says it, I know all of the scholars say it, but I am telling you, in my African Native American soul, I know ain't no little black people went running over no ice bridge to populate this hemisphere. Guess where the hypothesis came from? It came from Thomas Jefferson popularized the idea. At the time, he was stealing the land in the Louisiana Purchase. It came at a time when they wanted you to think everybody in this hemisphere was also an immigrant, so they were just later immigrants, so then they, therefore, would be entitled to the land. Are you following me? Come on, most of you have Native American indigenous blood. But if everybody was started in Africa 40, 50, 100, 200,000 years ago, we weren't afraid of the ocean. Europeans are afraid of the ocean. They got the Loman monster, they're afraid of the sea. The Irish nearly starved to death because they didn't know how to fish. Tell them something. The so-called pilgrims in Plymouth, if it weren't for Massasoit and Somerset and Squancho, would have died. And you all wouldn't be around here celebrating the first harvest, which you mistakenly call Thanksgiving. And those dishonest suckers wrote back to England and said the natives are now paying us tribute after they got through saving these poor suckers from starving to death who had just gotten off of a boat that they stayed on for an entire year because they didn't know what to do on the land until the Native Americans said, this is how you plant corn. This is how you toil the soil. This is how you fish, you dumb suckers. This is real. This is real. If you want to be African, you have to be African. You have to think, what would the world be like if there were I think this all the time. It won't be difficult once you get in the habit. What would the world be like if there were no white people?
Gotta love the ancestor, Dr. Shashi McIntyre.
Man, that was deep.
Her book right now, and I'm checking. If you don't have it, I'm lucky enough to be one of the ones to have a copy. But right now on Amazon, the price of this book is $1,386.87.
Wow.
Look at the brother's face. The brother.
The name of the book is called Criminalizing a Race, Free Black During Slavery. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm thankful. I think Sister Pat got a copy. Probably Brother Peace got a copy. But I am thankful to the lucky ones to have a copy of this book. And that's why, I say what I say. She's talking about free Black people criminalized just from moving about. It's a deep book.
Yes.
My soapbox. Sister Brooke, any commentary? Because I see we leaving you out the conversation. I didn't mean to do that.
Oh, no. I didn't mind. Brother Divine is so knowledgeable on this. That's why, we all have our strengths. And the work that he's done before I even came on board is amazing. I love learning about all the work that he's done and what we could do to make it better. And before every speech I write, I'm always consulting him about what the strategy should be, what I should focus on, what would make the whatchamacallit better. So listen to him talk is like, he needed to be the one to speak. He knows a lot more about this than I do.
Love it. The next committee meeting is in the Bronx next month. So we will definitely be there as well. But Sister Brooke, let them know about the petition that you have written.
Yes. So this is something else that me and Brother Divine cooked up on our back channels. So we were trying to figure out, because basically Lori Daniels favors in all her stinkosity. She did have a valid point that there is nothing, we're letting them know, we're putting on the record, but they can't really do anything except for what Brother Divine said, which is to recommend that this is BS and you need to do something for lineage-based. That's the only thing they could do. But really, it doesn't even really matter what kind of recommendations they come up with. The bill is illegal, and that's just that. Is just that. And you can't have a foundation, an illegal, unconstitutional foundation. So it's a wrap. So what could we do next, right? And next is we have to apply pressure to the lawmakers. You know what I'm saying? To everybody involved. And so I created a petition, and honestly, it's really not the petition. It's not the reason why, but please sign it. But the petition allowed me to be able to gather all the lawmakers in one place and make it easy for people to send them emails. And the email is what I want. I want to flood their emails from FBA and our FBA allies and family that feel the same way. I want to flood their emails. So, by starting the petition, it gave me an easy way for people to just click to the lawmakers and be able to send a standard email, or you can edit it and add your own, things that you want to say to the different lawmakers and everything, because that needs to be the next thing. We need to let them know that that when this dies, one, we know that you got us just around here spinning our heels, going around mulberry bushes that don't make sense. We already know that, and we want them to know that when this whole loop-de-loop is finished, we still gonna be here, and you still gonna have to deal with it.
Can I offer? I'm sorry, Sister Brooke. I'm gonna wait for you to finish.
No, it's okay. Yeah. So we just, I started that just so we could send them emails. I also created a separate petition for HR 40 because there's so many co-sponsors on HR 40. It was a very long list, so I didn't want to add that list to the list of the bill for in New York. So I created 2 petitions for that reason. And then I also added the link for us to unregister from the Democratic Party.
Yeah, those the link to Sister Brooks' social media is there. So you guys click on it and then you can get access to those petitions. I just wanted to show, what I was talking about. And those of us who know what the hell is in this book, we know. But I wanted to share that so y'all don't think I'm lying. You see how much the price of this book? What is it? 1386. 97.
That's crazy.
A used copy is $218.98.
Lord.
Okay. Now, when you want to talk about something deep, yeah. So if you are blessed enough to get a copy or see it at one of these little book fairs or whatever, grab it. You'll thank me later. You'll thank me later. But Brother Black, I know we've come almost to the end of our program, and I know you got your spill, but I wanted to allow our guests to get their last thoughts and comments. Brother Divine, please let the people know where they can find you, find out more information about the Freedmen Project, and anything you got going on.
Okay, great. So thank you so much. I've learned so much. I just love being in the presence of those that are smarter than me. They say if you're the smartest in the room, you're in the wrong room. So I appreciate being amongst this panel that has taught me so much in this limited amount of time. So I pray that I get an opportunity to come back. I definitely will be listening, whether I get a chance to come back at all, but definitely I appreciate what you guys are doing, and the knowledge and information that you're dropping for us as a people and for us as a community. You can find us at, if you're looking to join us, or join the mailing list, you can find us at www.usfreedmenproject.org. There is a join process, or you can email us directly at admin, ADMIN, at usfreedmenproject.org. That's USFREEDMENPROJECT.org. Also, you can find us on Twitter at USFreedmenPRJ. So that's at USFREEDMENPRJ. There we go. That's our website. We are don't judge us. We are in the process of revamping this thing. We are going to bring it up to current standards. But just with us advocating, that is one of the things that we are working on currently right now for 2025. The great thing about it is that we have met some great people in this space that are lending their talents and their expertise. Like it's again, that's just not a catchphrase. I really believe that we are in the middle of a Black American Renaissance, and it's almost like, I call it divine providence, and it's like all these things are happening in the way in which they're supposed to happen for it to be a perfect storm, where the conditions that we needed are here, and we're just taking advantage of it at every step of the way. And it's, like I said, programs and people like you guys that are giving us the fuel, giving us the information, giving us the action items and steps, giving us the lessons from the past, right, from experience, that are allowing us to move forward in the way that we're doing. The only thing that we got coming up that I'll end with here is we are planning. We're in the infant stages of planning a day of advocacy. We are looking to get a bunch of people together, organize them, and provide transportation and things of that nature, so that we can go up to Albany, get into the faces of these politicians, and let them know what we want, let them know how we want it, and remind them that they work for us and we don't work for them. So that is coming up. That will be coming up very, very shortly. We are actually working with one of the members to in the assembly to organize that. Let us know what day is best when they will be in Albany and not in meetings or in the chambers. So yeah, that's going to be one of the big things that we do to push what we have on there. Because on our agenda for this session, because we see what's going on with the reparations task force, is that the two major things that we're looking for is disaggregation. At a couple of the meetings, I mentioned that the definition of African American is anyone with origins in any of the Black racial groups of Africa. So what that means is that we're African Americans, Afro-Caribbeans are African Americans, continental Africans are African Americans, Afro-Latinos are African Americans. Afro-Asians are African American. And so what they did was they took
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk is an African American. So is Charlize Theron. And so what they've done is they've taken a ethnic designation that was supposed to be just for us, and they made it into a racial term. What that means, because race-based policies is illegal, is that we have no term with which to get specific set-asides from a government that we pay taxes to. Like, I want that to sink in for us to understand. Not us here on the panel, more so the people that are listening. Because what that means is that's why you always see underserved, minorities, historically marginalized, right? Because there is no way for them to talk directly to us that can get us set-asides, except for our freedman status, which we have revitalized and reintroduced into the political lexicon. And so we are looking to disaggregate the data at the state level. That is one of the initiatives that we're pushing legislatively. And we're also pushing for a state level Office of Freedmen Affairs or a state level Freedmen's Bureau. For every other group has something. You got the Bureau of Indian Affairs. You even have the Office of New Americans. You have an Office of Immigrant Affairs in New York, paid for by our tax dollars. There is no office. We are the oldest ethnic group in this city and this country. And there is no office for us to go to just for us. And so that is going to change on our watch. And so we are also advocating for that this legislative session. So that's what we're going to be advocating for on that day of advocacy when we get up there. We are getting some of the literature together so that you can pass out and digitally, you know what I'm saying? And with hard copies to take to your local offices. So that is what our push is going to be for 2025. In addition to continue to speak truth to power to this. Can I curse on here?
Get it.
To this sucker ass task force. So we're gonna keep doing that and advocating for our people's needs, because that's just what we do.
Love it, brother. Again, thank you for coming up. And again, this is your home. We ground zero for this New York reparations task force. We ground zero over here. We ground zero.
Yes.
For real. So this is your home. Whenever you want to come back, just hit me a text. I got something. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And we'll make space for you.
Love.
And again, like you said, this is a renaissance that is happening. And it's throwing so many people who, of course, brother, they don't know if they coming and going. But it's very revealing.
Yes.
Very telling.
And Sister Keisha, tell Brother Divine about what we discussed last week on the program in terms of dealing with Pan-Africanism. Quotes from the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey himself.
Oh, I sent you the pages, Divine.
Yes, letting the folks know they need to be thankful for us. When they come here, they need to be humble.
Yes.
Because we elevated the consciousness of the Black world.
Marcus Garvey said this?
These are Garvey words.
Garvey said in a
I gotta see that.
Title. Yeah, I think Sister Brooke sent you 3 of the pages that we read last week. But
nice. Well, you said that, Sister Brooke?
I sent it probably last week, like right after, because the same day she was like, make sure you send it to Divine. You probably didn't know what I said.
Yeah, yes.
Or just watch last week's show.
I'm gonna do that too.
Right. Thank you, Brother Black. Yeah, just watch last week's show. But yeah, we went in on that because, with us being who we are, we're definitely African-centered in terms of thought pattern and speech behavior. However, we're not going to deny our lineage to make other people comfortable. And we always talk about a lot of information is rhetoric. A lot of information has been debunked. People are working with antiquated information. And we know history is best qualified to reward our research. And a lot of folks aren't researching because we're in the digital age where people will just watch a YouTube clip or follow their favorite lecturer. Shout out to the Pimp of Pan-Africanism. They'll follow them and regurgitate what they say and then think they know everything without doing their due diligence like, you know, some of us on the panel who's a little older, who remember the days where you had to travel the city, if not the country, to find particular books and really do your due diligence. There was no, I'm talking about pre-AOL days, where you literally had to go to the bookstores. You had to go to the bookstores. Whether
encyclopedia days.
Yeah. Encyclopedias didn't even do no justice.
True.
We really had to do the due diligence. Now all of this is microwaved information, and folks just, they don't get it. They don't get it. So we're definitely thankful for y'all young folks. It's funny because I remember when I was the baby, but y'all the young folks now. They used to call me kid. All the old people, hey kid. But now y'all the young people, and we're definitely grateful and thankful because y'all are pivoting in the proper direction as we're pivoting. You know, Sister Keisha, myself, you know, Brother Black, Sister Marcia, you know, we still have our roots and our foundation, understanding African history and its contribution to the world development. But this ain't that. You know what I'm saying? This fight ain't that. You know, so we definitely grateful for y'all. But look into that, what Garvey had to say, because I don't think most Pan-Africans even know that Garvey has said that.
They don't.
I know they don't.
Right, they don't.
They don't.
I know they don't. But definitely check that out.
You know,
the speech was entitled "The West Indian is Under the Spell of Rip Van Winkle."
You know, most of the times people are quote, like Brother Tad was saying, they're all about the quotes. They never read the deep material. They are not real readers. They pull out highlights. They remember what Kwame Ture said and they stick to it, and they divide it in different ways. They remember what, you know, Malcolm said and divide it in many ways so that it sounds great. But really being diligent readers and reading through all the materials. And at the end of the day, we can't read all the materials, but have 5 books. That's your arsenal and be true to it. We don't have that in our community in general, at least, you know, in the spaces that I walk through.
Yes.
Well, Sister Brooke, I'm gonna let you get your final thoughts and comments in here, get you off the platform, get you some rest, like I need, for real. I definitely need it. Trust me.
Sister Brooke is ready for war with that camouflage.
I'm so tired.
I'm always ready for him. I know you tired.
I look like a wino today. I'm tired.
I'm still waiting on that lecture from the other night. I want to see that. Whenever you speaking, I want to see it.
Oh,
so
yes,
I'm still waiting on that.
From the BK William Mackey History Club. I'll send that to you. I'll send it to you. So go ahead, sis.
Yeah, you know, it's just, I find like when you started talking about David Ruggles, I was like, oh my gosh, I did a whole post on him because I thought he was like the coolest thing. Like, and the fact that we've never heard of him, it really leads into, you know, as they're about this, they're trying to take away, or, you know, the Department of Education and all of these things. We're not learning what we're supposed to be learning anyway. And people were nervous not too long ago when they were going to take away Black history. What are you mad about? What are you upset about? They're not teaching us our stuff anyway. I had to go looking. I don't even remember how I ended up. I think I stumbled on him because I was studying New York and how they profited from slavery. And I think that's how his name came up. And I was reading this and I was just like, you know, we really need to put these kind of people, you know, on t-shirts and stuff like that. Our kids are walking around with all kind of Nirvana t-shirts and what, they don't even know what Nirvana is. You know, all kinds of weird t-shirts and stuff like that. And these are the people I really feel that we should be, because these are the spirits that we should be trying to invoke within the neighborhood, you know. And this might be a little controversial.
Say it anyway.
I know they just revealed this huge Emmett Till statue, and I don't hate it, right? But why are we always making statues of the victims?
Talk about it. We denounce victim mentality over here. So
really? Tell you what my mother used to say. My mother used to say, Like, my mother did not like Good Times. She said, I don't watch no loser shows. Scratching and surviving. She ain't like that. And she hated it.
Now, don't talk about my good times.
I
Talk about my
understand,
DJ.
but she hated anything that said that we weren't winners and that we couldn't be at the top and that we weren't the smartest and we weren't the brightest. She did not like it. She just did not. And then that's how she felt about Good Times. So when it comes to these statues, I kind of feel the same way. I'm just like, why can't we have a statue of David Ruggles? Why can't we have a statue of, of things like that? At least, like, even Trump, at least he's gonna put a statue of Harriet Tubman and not George Floyd, right? And not George Floyd. I was like, at least he picked somebody, So I appreciate, like you said, all the knowledge that you share with me on here and offline. I look forward to watching every week, except for when I have meetings with the Freedmen. That's the only time I'm not here, is when I'm over there or over there. So that's the only time I'm not here, but I appreciate it. And thank you guys for always being so welcoming to me. And I love you. That's it.
Thank you both for coming on. And again, this how we rock out over here. You don't got nothing to worry about. We on code over here. We don't play no games. None of that over here. So this is home. So thank y'all. We'll see y'all again soon. Brother Devon will be in touch.
Yes.
Definitely read those 3 pages that the sister sent.
I definitely will. And shout out to y'all for being able to, like the brother said, taking new information and pivot. Like, I mean, that I don't want to make it seem like y'all would ever be stuck in your ways, but I also want to give y'all credit for how profound that is, to be able to take new information in and say, you know what, I can adjust what my thought process is on this thing and see what's going on, because so many people get stuck in their ideology, get stuck in their paradigm, and I think the sister above me on the screen said it right. Like, they'll get new information, and when that old saying that when people say someone convinced against their will is of the same opinion still, it's like it doesn't matter what the facts are, they still know what they think they know, and they're gonna stick with it. So for you guys to be able to adjust and pivot and be fluid, and I just want to give y'all flowers while y'all can still smell them. That's powerful.
No
and
doubt.
I appreciate
it. Yeah, that's that Brooklyn authenticity. You know what I'm saying?
BK all day.
That's why we got Black in the corner. He from BX.
He stays in the corner, We gotta watch him. We watch him with the cat eye over here.
That's our brother. We love him too, though. But we gotta watch him. He from the Bronx.
We know they ain't too right in the head, so we just keep him over here and make sure he stays straight. Stuff like that. But again, family, we thank you, appreciate you. Come back anytime you want.
Yes.
We'll stay in touch. See you in the Bronx, hopefully.
God willing.
April 10th. And definitely, family, email these politicians. The list is on our page. Let them know your dissent, and we'll see y'all also in the Bronx. Brother Black, your final thoughts and commentary. Hold on. Gotta show some love to my Fort Green family right here. You watching from Thailand right now. This is my Fort Green family. Gotta show love. What up, Denny? Say what's up to the right for me. Go ahead, Brother Black.
What I wanted to say when Sister Brooke was talking was a new, or maybe not new, but another way to look at reparations and the movement for it. I've been following how they're moving in California. Is basically the same thing, because Governor Newsom was talking about he ain't going to pay cash reparations, but people can implement programs, and the same rhetoric that we've been hearing for all these years now. and that there are people like the brother Prince that just left off who are trying to, at least put their 2 cents in to say, no, we want cash. But the precedent that maybe you guys can look at establishing is how Khazars received reparations, and none of what happened that they got reparations for happened on this soil. So why aren't FBAs able to claim something that definitely happened, because the evidence is history? So maybe that could be an argument, if you will, if nothing else, and you can put that into the plans. As far as the charging Professor McIntyre's book, I used to be in a study group with her on the Y on 135th Street. She gave me that book, signed it, and drove me home that day. So I had the book. I don't have it anymore, but I read it and I suggested. I'm sure you can find it on PDF, but I'm not going to suggest that. For those of you who can find it in paperback or in a book form, please buy it. It's worth it. And a lot of what she said is still applicable to this day as we speak, even though the book was written probably in the late 80s, early 90s. Great show, Sister Keisha. Thank you again for another great Blacktastic week. I wonder who says that. Just a great show. Tomorrow's a blood moon. It's supposed to be a lot of energy you can harness from that. I'm not going to get into the specifics, so, make it mean what it means to you. And if it don't mean anything and you're interested, just research it. And I hope we here doing this again next week on the bridge. Y'all know where I'm at. I'm at melaninstitute.blogspot.com. My book is in my background now. Sister Keisha gave me a lesson last week. Me and her just on a private offline, and it's a great experience. I like it.
I think it's Mike is doing tonight, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Tad fixed that when he told me go in the settings. Stop it. And anyway, when he went like that, I understood what he meant. But no, that's all I really got to say. And love y'all. And we're gonna do it again next week, March 20th, right before the spring solstice. And see you then. Sister Marcia, peace.
Family, I'd like to thank my brother Tad, my brother Black, my sister Keisha for always having power talks, right? This is really good for us. There's a lot of chit chatter outside, but these power talks really help us ground ourselves. I want to be so happy for us to be passing the baton to these two great new leaders that are coming up, Brother Divine, Sister Brooke. You guys you're really staying on a charge, and I respect that. I respect the fact that you have an aim and a focus and a goal, and we're here to respect that. What I want to say to Brother Divine, as he was talking about the stagnancy that happens in our community, I think all of us on this panel has faced that with our elders or olders, and we don't want to be recognized as olders when we get in that realm of a Baba and a Mama. We want to be recognized as someone who is listening and trying to embark the intergenerational understanding so we can grow as a people. So I am so proud of you guys, and meshing this baton hand to hand together is going to be fun. So let reciprocity reigns. And, as Sister Brooke was telling us about David Ruggles saying, come what may, and everything necessary required, reminds me of Malcolm X. By any means necessary, we are going to get the work done, and we're going to remember our ancestors who called on the necessities of our people working together and building the unity that we need to go forward. Again, great energy ahead. So pull in that energy. May time manifest, and if it may not, make it manifest. Brother Tad?
All right. Yeah, and that's
hey, where's our claps and cheers at, man? You ain't had it on this whole show.
It's not working.
All right.
You see,
as I was saying,
and everything goes awry.
Yeah, right. As we pass the baton, don't bust nobody upside the head. Shout out to our young people on the track team. Right. But again, this was definitely a super dope show. I appreciate Divine Prince. Definitely appreciate our young sister Brooke. I love and appreciate my brother Black, even though he showed that he from the Bronx. You know. But family, this was definitely a dope show. Every Sunday, 2 p.m., OG Wisdom Podcast. Unfortunately, we won't be doing it this Sunday because I will be running the New York City half marathon race this Sunday from Prospect Park to Central Park. Whew. Yeah, we definitely got to stay in shape, you know, for the warrior class, right? But thank you for tuning in, everybody. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share. Please share. Everybody watching on the playback, please share. Any Pan-Africans that want to argue with you about your FBA position, please share. All right. So hopefully you were inspired by something you heard here tonight. It's your turn to go out and inspire others. Y'all stay up, stay blessed, stay true. And no matter how hard things may seem right now, there's always better days ahead. Sister Keisha.
Family, thank y'all for coming out and rocking out with us for another edition of Thorough Black Talk right here on the Brooklyn Bridge. Let somebody to tell somebody that this is where it goes down every Thursday, 8 to 10 p.m. We definitely appreciate our guests. Enjoy the rest of your week. Be safe and be dangerous at the same time. Remember, true courage is knowing how to suffer. The battlefield is where you stand. Good night, y'all. We out.
On the Brooklyn Bridge tonight, voices strong, knowledge tight. Thorough black talk in the air, changing minds, changing flair. From brother Tad to sister K, warriors got things to say. Sister Marcy brings the heat, brother Blacksmith keeps the beat. Revolutionary waves, they fly underneath the open sky. Every word's a call to fight. Tune in, feel the ancestral light. Thursday nights the world will see Black Power Media on a spree. Facebook, YouTube all aligned, breaking free from every bind. Social talk and politics, every voice breaks through the matrix. Commentary raw and true, for the many, not the few. Revolutionary waves, they fly underneath the open sky. Every word's a call to fight. Tune in, feel the ancestral light. Social talk and politics, every voice breaks through the matrix. Commentary raw and true, for the many, not the few. Revolutionary way.